CNBC Africa reporter Christine Mhundwa was at the Nedbank AGM this morning and spoke to Chief Executive Mike Brown about Nedbank's trading update.
Yeah, certainly 2013 was an excellent year for Nedbank. We posted record headline earnings of some 8.7 billion rand. We managed to grow by roughly 16% year over year, and were able to declare dividends that grew 19% to our shareholders, and we ended up as the second best performing of the big four South African banks. But I think importantly for Nedbank, we also continued to grow our franchise. We added around 10% to our customer base. We continued to grow our staff and our staff numbers, and we really think that we have improved the value of the Nedbank brand in addition to having a good financial outcome.
If you can just give us a little more about your expansion into Africa strategy. You've talked about a few acquisitions that you've made.
Yeah, so certainly, the way that we have enunciated our strategy into the rest of Africa is that those markets that are closer to home here in the SADC environment, these are markets that we know and understand and where we think Nedbank has competitive advantage, and these are markets that we want to own, manage and control banks. We are already in 5 African countries: Swaziland, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe and Malawi, and what we announced recently is the acquisition of an initial 36% stake in a bank in Mozambique called Banco Unico, but that transaction has a clear pathway to control. What we also say is that in markets that are a little further away from home, take for example Central and West Africa, these are more complicated markets to think that we have competitive advantage in, and that's where we have defined our strategy as one of partnership, and ETI or EcoBank is our chosen partner in those markets where they're present in some 33 countries in Africa, and as part of deepening that strategic alliance, we have the opportunity during the course of this year to take up to a 20% equity stake in ETI.
Innovation is a big part of your banking or strategy at least, and just talking about the future of banking, how is the bank positioning itself for that?
Yeah, so certainly we think we're in good shape on the innovation front. You're quite right, innovation is the lifeblood of any organization, and if innovation is happening faster outside your organization than inside your organization, clearly you're going to be in difficulties over time. And certainly where we think that we're at the forefront of innovation is in our mobile and digital products, where for example the Nedbank App Suite won the best consumer app of the year at the MTN App Awards. So certainly we think we're in really good shape in the digital and app environment, and in particular in the security mechanisms we've put around mobile banking, which we believe are best in class.
The issue of remuneration does get a lot of attention, and you say it's something that the Nedbank Group also gives attention to. But recently we had Berkshire Hathaway's chairman, Mr. Warren Buffett, talking about how remuneration, or rather the disclosure of executive pay doesn't do shareholders much service. Your comments on that?
So certainly I would think that shareholders absolutely have the right to disclosure on executive pay. I think the challenge is in trying to make sure that those disclosures are meaningful to shareholders, so they need to contain within them some understanding of the benchmarking that's been used to arrive at those remuneration outcomes, but in particular how they are linked to the relative performance of an organization. So provided the disclosures are meaningful and well set out, I think clearly shareholders are entitled to understand the link between pay and performance.
And judging by how the vote went today, you think Nedbank is really at the forefront of that?
Yeah, so certainly we spend an enormous amount of time at a board and at a RemCo trying to design remuneration policies that produce outcomes that create a link between pay and performance. I think as you saw here today, we got somewhere over 98% vote in favor of our remuneration policies.
Lastly, Mr. Brown, just your succession plans. We know that there will be quite a few retirements taking place from the board next year, one of them also being chairman of the board, Mr. Khoza. Just a sense of the succession plans?
Yeah, so we have a rule at Nedbank that non-executive directors have to retire after 9 years on our board, and as a result of that we have several directors retiring next year, including the chairman, and we have kicked off quite a while ago an appropriate succession planning process both for non-executive directors as well as for the chairman, with the chairman's succession planning process being led by the lead independent director, Malcolm Wyman. So I think we'll be well prepared for May next year.
And I promise this is now my last question, just a comment on the latest trading update that we came out this morning.
So certainly I think, a quarter is always a volatile period in any organization, but I think we had a solid start to the year, reasonable growth in net interest income at over 8%, probably slightly lower non-interest revenue growth than we would have liked, but importantly commission and fees, which is the big recurring part of non-interest revenue, was up over 6%, and that's after choosing not to have price increases this year as we build our franchise for the longer term and grow customer numbers. Probably also one of the standout features would have been a better than expected credit loss ratio at 89 basis points. A year ago we were at 1.22%, and for the full year last year at 1.06%. So we had a good outcome in the first quarter with no large corporate defaults, which are always volatile, and particularly in our retail business we had a good outcome in the collections environment, which meant that retail impairments improved Q1 14 on Q1 13.